So if the word website pulled you in, then maybe words like new UI or a fresh, update, something of that sort would probably pull you further in. As a matter of fact, we're talking about the right reasons to make a new website. A lot of the time, we'd find customers would come to us, and we'd realize quite earlier on that they just built a website, and we'd be like, "Wow, okay, that was quite close," and they would. They probably come to us because the KPI that they expected would change, didn't change. Like they think, okay, this thing would bring in more leads. They probably think the website's going to cause more stickiness.
Yeah.
And
customers are losing interest.
Yeah, and more than once we found that their websites look just like one of their competitors' websites. If you're on the verge of building a new website, or you know someone who's building a new website, then you should stick around, because that's what we're going to be talking about. This episode is about good reasons to build a new website. When you think that something as intangible as design and communications can't really affect your bottom line,
you usually end up with marketing and advertising tools that don't help you inherently mitigate your business risk.
That's what this podcast is about.
A behind-the-scenes look at how we go about doing what we do, mitigating business risk. I'm Jude Lazaro.
And I'm Mark Lazaro. And you are watching our weekly video podcast. Apart from being an extremely sweet guy, Mario is one of the few generalists that I know who can balance something seriously technical and something seriously, creative, and blend them together. It's why I think I don't know if you're a self-professed website aficionado, but I'd say that, yeah, you're obsessed with them.
So people who know me know that one of the main things that I do is websites, and a lot of the time, if they've got an experience building a website or know someone who's built a website, would always come up to me and vent or confess their website traumas to me, saying that, dude, we just got someone to build a website and it looks exactly like somebody else's website, or they're not getting what they wanted from it at the end of the day.
And knowing you've obviously done some sort of a statistical analysis of what people told you. So can we list out a bunch of symptoms that get people to connect with what this episode is about, which is to think outside the template?
So I'm just going to bring up an example here. If your website looks anything like this, like for example, if it starts with an image carousel and has a large paragraph of center-aligned text, and your top 3 features listed in 3 columns represented by icons, not just the layout, even your navigation. Like if you have generic industry terminology in your navigation, like you have a home page, an about page, product page, and a contact us page. If your website looks anything like this, it's probably stuck in a template.
It sounds like most websites out there. Yeah. So we could be confusing a lot of people, but what you're saying is none of this is bad. It's just that when you find it in this form of simplicity, it means that at some point you're stuck in a template because someone hasn't moved beyond the defaults of that template. Yeah. So we got a little stuck in the word template, and we suddenly started to realize that the two of us were using 3 completely different meanings. Exactly. So the first meaning of template that we want to clarify is what we're speaking about here, which is you could be stuck in the most common meaning of template, which is a template for some CMS like WordPress. The second meaning of template was the fact that you were stuck in some sort of an industry standard. Either you or somebody in your team went and looked at some of your competitors' websites and just ripped off their navigation, and that became a template. Now, a slightly more technical term that we can use for template, but I know we're going to get into trouble for doing that, is to kind of reference front-end frameworks like Zerb or
Bootstrap or Semantic UI.
Now, depending on how technical you are, and I'm assuming that you're not, the first one's easy because it's just navigation, right? You went and followed some sort of a standard that someone else in the industry set as far as navigation was concerned. The second one is also easy to understand because a lot of people today are familiar with the fact that they can buy templates.
Yeah.
But the third one, which is a little technical, that's something that I think a lot of businesses don't know exist. Which is these great tools that people have put out there, open source tools, that makes web development easier, right? But what comes with it are defaults.
Yeah. In today's day and age, everyone wants a responsive website, but building a responsive website from scratch is a lot of work. Most likely, you're using a front-end framework like Zerb or Twitter Bootstrap. The thing is that almost all of them come with pretty decent UI kits, like all your buttons and your typography and everything are pretty set in place. The issue starts when people start using it as it is and not designing or customizing it. The end result is almost every website looks like it's a bootstrap website.
With those semantics out of the way, the three separate meanings of the word template that we could be inferring, what are the obstacles that are causing people to not get functional websites?
One of the primary culprits for this is the abundance of front-end frameworks. There are even templates designed exclusively only for like startup websites. I'm just gonna put a link to that in the show notes. Yeah. Besides that, there's plenty of lazy web developers who don't want to put in the extra effort or are not being paid enough to care about the client's content.
The world changed a couple of years ago when the mobile phone came along, after the iPhone propagated and then the Androids propagated. I remember building a website. Today we build anywhere between 4 or 6 websites depending on the number of devices that we're looking at. Yeah. These frameworks made it really simple for developers to, to quickly build responsive websites. To just direct the right attention towards the word lazy, which was the fact that most of them come with defaults. And most often, the developer's not being paid enough to take you beyond those defaults, and which is why you're getting a whole bunch of clones.
Exactly. Besides the budgets and laziness, you also have agencies. Agencies are to blame. Like agencies and website farms is what I'm calling them. The goal over there is to just put out as many websites as they can and as quickly as they can. And it doesn't matter what the content is, as long as they have a vague idea of what the client's doing, they're just putting websites out there.
You can direct all flack at me. he's just bent on getting me into trouble.
And lastly, it's a navigation first approach that people take.
Whoa, back up there, buddy. What did you just say?
I don't know how many people call it that, but I refer to it as a navigation first approach. Okay. When someone who wants to build a website comes to you and they're like, hey, I need to build a website, I've got a structure in mind, and you're thinking, okay, they're going to explain or break down their product for you. No, they've just looked at their competitors or someone else's website that made sense to them, and they're like, okay, I've got a home page, a product page, an about page, a contact page, and a gallery. The first time that I heard this, it sort of like drove me crazy, because I'm like, your product is not a photography product. Why do you have a gallery? He just had extra images, didn't know where to put it, not in the content apparently. So put them in the gallery.
We may sound like we're kind of throwing a lot of stones, the developer way, but we're not. We know a lot of great developers. Specifically your navigation first example, I know that was not a developer who did that.
No,
that was a client who did that to you. So it's about, the intent with which you approach a new website. Don't put yourself in the box of a website. It's not your job to build a website. That's the reason you're bringing somebody else in. Tell them why it's not working for your business. Focus on that KPI that I spoke about that you thought you wanted. Like, for instance, I want to improve my leads.
A couple of things to keep in mind when trying to figure out what really matters. Try and differentiate your product from your competitors. Try and design a better product exploration experience. You know your product really well, but not many people know it the way you do. So try and use the website to be the medium to communicate that intent. And thirdly, I would say try and build trust on your product through the website.
These are possible outcomes that one could begin the journey with.
Exactly.
Okay, how can a website deplete trust in a company or a product?
A while ago, when e-commerce was starting to become a big thing, everyone wanted to build an e-commerce site because there was money involved and monetary transaction. It was very easy for somebody to build an e-commerce site that looked exactly like another e-commerce site, which was trusted.
Because again, they're all using templates at some
Exactly,
point.
they're all using templates, and at the end of the day, some people got scammed. Because of which, e-commerce and templates in general have gotten a bad reputation.
Could you give us a set of best practices?
Yeah, one of the first things I would tell anyone is to prioritize user experience over user interface. No, but it's something we all know at this point if you've been listening so far.
No, but is it? Do people really know the difference between user experience and user interface?
Probably not. So yeah.
Huge opportunity for fight here, right? So how would you differentiate it?
So I would say user experience or UX is how you make someone feel when they're looking at your website or going through something, and UI is what they're looking at. They're not connected.
So UI?
They don't need to be connected.
Like UI, UX.
Exactly.
UI, UX. It's really, really not the same thing.
Yeah.
UI is what you're looking at when you look at a website.
Right.
UX or user experience is not limited to a website.
Yeah.
The user experience that you deliver as a company passes through your website.
Yeah.
Your website is a subset of user experience. And just because someone came to you and is building a website for you, or you think that people only build websites, does not mean that user experience is confined to some technical, mumbo jumbo that's
or typography or buttons or any of that.
User experience is how you make someone feel. Exactly. But it goes beyond a website. Your website is one part of it. Exactly. Right? Okay.
Try and avoid the navigation first approach. We've already discussed that, but that's a big no-no. Try and focus on your content and not your navigation.
Right.
Thirdly, I would say hire people who can bridge the gap between design and technology.
So we sat down a couple of days ago and tried to put down a few pointers as to how to choose a website developer. Figure out whether there's too much similarity between a lot of the stuff that they've built, right? Because if there is, and it all looks like, just a carbon copy or a clone of the other, then, a lot of people don't pitch their entire portfolio. They'll pitch like the top 3 things that they've done. And even there, what you could do is pick that one website this person's pitching at you and say, awesome, let me take this seriously, hear him out on why he's done it and what he's done for it. And then you go off and do a competitive analysis of that website. If he just walks in and goes, you give me content, I'll build a website for you. Something's not right there.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah, does he care about what you're doing? So if he comes in and starts asking you about your product, that's a good sign.
Avoid using front-end frameworks in their pure vanilla form.
There are many people out there that don't provide the right budgets for people to go beyond using vanilla versions of templates or vanilla versions of frameworks.
They should just use Squarespace. That will probably save them a lot of money.
We are huge, supporters of an MVP approach, minimum viable product, where you put something out there, and if you have to use a template, we use a template a lot of the time. We'll use something and just put it up there for a couple of weeks, but we will replace it with something that's much more meaningful. Talk about vanilla. How do you spot vanilla? Most often what you do is you'd find that it's extremely simple, and I think that's what you were pointing out initially. You're like one piece of centrally aligned text.
Exactly.
And then 3 column, split ups. Most of these frameworks are capable of a lot more.
Oh, definitely a lot more. And it's all limited by your imagination, I would say, because almost all CSS frameworks come with the standard 12 column grid. But this... Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay, can we simplify that down to saying that all CSS frameworks, or rather web development, have come to a point where they're advanced enough to be able to replicate print? You can design some really involved and intricate stuff, like you'd find in a magazine.
Exactly. So I'm just going to bring up one of the websites that we worked on recently. Even though this uses a 12-column grid that might be similar to something on most frameworks.
Can you show us what that feels like?
It's not using your standard 3-column, 6-column. There we go. Yeah. So you can see the grid, and this is similar to what most CSS frameworks have. But you take interesting choices, and you can use print design to take some inspiration on how you lay out this content and how you use these columns to basically let your content flow through it.
And then there's a framework running in the back. The thing is that we're saying avoid the defaults,
Exactly.
which is what we were saying when we used the word vanilla.
Yeah.
Right. Can you scroll down a little more on this? So that people get a sense of the fact that you've not necessarily followed the same pattern. And this website, right on top, starts with one big image and a piece of text on it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. So none of these things are bad. The point here is your defaults are not bad, but sticking with just the defaults is going to get you in a rut where you look like a lot of other websites.
Moving on, I would say be realistic is what I would say. When you're hiring someone to build a website for you, be realistic about timeframes and budgets. If the person who you've hired doesn't feel like it's worth his while, or you're not compensating him enough for putting his time and effort, you're not going to get what you want.
That sounds like a nice place to wrap up.
Yeah.
I think we got to wish a lot of people good luck. In this day and age, websites are kind of like your go-to as far as any company is concerned. It's almost the first experience you get. And we want to see more interesting websites out there because we want to use them.
Yeah.
So please go build awesome websites. Please build meaningful websites, and we'll see you on the other side. If you're interested, you can follow us on Instagram because you see a lot.
On Instagram.
You can see what I have to deal with on Instagram, and and there's more content like this on our YouTube channel, and we podcast every week.
Is it done? Are we done? Done! Cut!